So I want to welcome everybody who is here. We are so glad to have you here and chatting with Sarah Hays Coomer. She is a Mayo Clinic and National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach, a certified personal trainer, and an author based out of Nashville, Tennessee. She spent nearly 20 years helping individuals and groups build personalized systems to ease chronic stress with self-selected concrete behavioral changes. Summing up health coaches right there. She's also contributed to many publications, spoken at organizations and universities nationwide, and written 3 different books. We've got The Habit Trip, Physical Disobedience, and Lightness of Body and Mind, in addition to being a Forbes columnist with her column, Hey Health Coach. You can find her on her website, LinkedIn, or Instagram. I feel like I could go on and on about all of these things that you have done. It is such an impressive resume of sorts, but no one tells your story like you do. So I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Ashley, and thank you to YourCoach for having me. This is really, I think the work that you all are doing is just so impressive, the way that you have grown and the support that you're offering to coaches. So I'm just really grateful to be able to be here to help, especially new coaches that are starting out, because I know what that journey is like. So hi, everybody. We're going to have time for a Q&A at the end. We've already got some pre-submitted questions from you all. So I'm really looking forward to especially engaging with what you all need. I want to make sure that this is helpful for you. So, okay. So, right. So Ashley said 20 years, and it has been 20 years. Well, I guess it's 20 years in 2023. Yeah, so I started out as a personal trainer. I was living and working in Los Angeles. I was working office jobs. I was in the arts. I was a singer-songwriter. I was an actor. I was a street performer. I was doing all of these things, and had a lot of body shame and insecurity, and eating disorders, depression, lots of things that I was struggling with that had sort of plagued me from my teens into my 20s. And I decided to go back I went to UCLA for some postgraduate work on physiology, nutrition, and some philosophy courses as well, because I really was, I come from a family of academics, and I thought, okay, I'm such a wreck. Maybe I can educate myself into making peace with my body. So I decided ultimately, after some of those physiology courses and things, to become a personal trainer. So I got certified by the National Strength and Conditioning Association as a personal trainer in 2003, and started specializing in working with people who were really struggling with their bodies in some way or another. So people that were struggling like me with body image and eating disorders, people were struggling with stress, anxiety, chronic pain, and then it grew into disability and injuries, and people that were coming out of cancer and in recovery and things like that. So at the time, I had a boyfriend who told me, like, what are you doing? You're in LA. You should be trying to train, like celebrities. I didn't want any part of that. I wanted to try to find people who were struggling like me and try to help with that. So as I did that work over the years, I found that the language around personal training and health and weight loss was really, really grating for me. It really bothered me. And I felt like there wasn't any language. There's a lot of it now. There are a lot of people doing amazing work now in this field. But at the time, it was really about control and manipulation of our bodies. And so I started writing. And I wrote my first book took almost 10 years, because I wrote like a whole manuscript on my own. It was absurd. It was like 350 pages or something.
It's a passion project.
Yeah, exactly. But I was trying to sort out what I was trying to say. And then eventually started that took me forever, and I had to completely rewrite it before selling the last one, and which was published, the first one, which was published in 2016. But in the meantime, I got lots of great advice from people that were more accomplished than me, who said, you need to start really small. You need to go to your local publications, like submit little, op-eds or think pieces to little local magazines. And that's how I started with publishing. So got a few of those, and then over time, eventually was able to build that up some, and then get an agent, sell my first book, which, like I said, was published 2016. So, and then as far as health coaching goes, I got to about, it wasn't, maybe 5 years in, and I just felt like what I was doing was more coaching than it was training. I mean, I was still training people, but they were coming in with all of these. A lot of it was how they were thinking about their wellness and how they were thinking about their bodies and the choices that they were making. And at the time, I didn't even have the language to know that I was coaching. And then somewhere around 2010, I discovered that there was what was the name of it? It was like a nutrition, I think it was a nutrition and health coach certification that I got, but this was before the national board existed.
That changed a lot of things.
It changed everything. Yeah. I am so grateful to all of the people that have put in all of this hard work and research and study to create this floor of the national board certification for all of us. So anyway, I got that certification and really started to pivot more into the coaching bit. I was still personal training. And then I actually didn't discover it until 2018. I guess it came into existence 2016. I discovered the national board in 2018, went to Mayo 2019, and then got the national board certification in 2020. And since then I have one legacy personal training client who I stick with mostly because I just get to work out and get paid for it. But it's, so for the most part, I'm entirely coaching now and writing.
Wonderful. That is such a diverse background. I love hearing about being the street performer and then the transition into health coach. Like, that is fascinating. I feel like we could ask so many questions and dive in there, but I want to focus on the health coaching piece. And also, I realized I was so excited to have you here and introduce you. I never introduced myself. I'm just going to take a quick moment. I want to say hi to everybody. My name is Ashley Honeycutt. I'm the Director of Health Coaching Operations here at YourCoach, and we are so excited to have you here. But yeah, I was stoked to talk to you, and I just jumped right into chatting with you. And so you're mostly coaching now. One thing that you mentioned was how your personal experience and how focusing on your health really was the driver behind everything that you've done since. And that helped you to find your niche. You wanted to help other people that had similar experiences. And then that's played into who you are today. And I feel like so many of us have that personal connection, and it's what's brought us to coaching. And it really affects how we build our business, right?
Yeah.
So thinking of that, and a new coach who's coming in and starting their business, what advice would you have for them with this personal story and how to integrate that into their niche or what they're going to do?
Yeah, I think this idea of a niche is really, really important. Sometimes you feel like if you can just say, well, I can work with anybody, which, in theory it's true as a coach. We are a blank slate and creating a safe space for people, regardless of their circumstances. And it really does help people feel seen when they recognize themselves in your information that you're putting into the world about who you help. So that actually can bring more clients to you if you can narrow down a little bit to who you serve. So at this point, I serve a lot of professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives who are struggling with chronic stress, and many of them with weight and body image. So that's kind of where my niche has narrowed to. But I do have people outside of that who just find me, hey, can you understand this? So just to help people, and also knowing your background. So when you think about body image and weight loss and things like that, that comes from my personal training background. So just because, and even if your field is something, if you were a dentist and now you're a health coach, then you could be working, you could have a whole career, you could have speaking engagements, and you could have events and things with dentists who are struggling with their health because they have high stress jobs. So, any background that you come from can be applicable and can help reflect in your clients as well. So I think it's important not to deny, because I went through a phase of that with personal training, like, oh, I'm so bored of counting reps. I don't want to talk about personal training. Plus, for a long time, I was, I didn't, until I had proper training as a coach, I didn't understand that I was counteracting my own, like I was giving prescriptive advice and trying to lead people along with coaching. And those two things don't work together.
Right.
So now I know how to switch those hats when I need to. But
it's a valuable skill. It can be challenging.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's important to not deny who you were and all of the things that make you who you are, and to bring that in so that you can use it to figure out what your niche might be, what the easiest one to start out with might be.
Yeah, you had a lot of great points in there. One piece I think that as new coaches, a lot of us go through is that almost counterintuitive idea that having a very specific niche can actually help us be more successful, right? And they're not hard lines. Like you said, we can coach anybody, right? I mean, health and wellness coaching is health and wellness coaching, regardless of if we're in stress and anxiety or working with busy moms or, high level executives. It's same concept, but it is helpful to have that niche because one, we all have this elevator pitch, right? Like this 30 to 60 second quick synopsis of what we do when people ask. And when you can be really specific, I think it encourages people to ask questions, and they're more interested when you have those really specific ones. They want to know, how did you come to that decision? Why do you work with them? What do you do to help those people? There's a lot of interest there. And then on the flip side, I think it builds trust, like you said, with the clients, that you know what your intention is and you know how to do it because you've taken the time to hone that in. So again, not hard and fast rules, but definitely something that can be really helpful. Is there any advice that you would have for health coaches who maybe aren't sure what their niche should be or could be?
Well, like I say, look into your past, look into the people that you're naturally drawn to helping. Most of us have communities, we have religious institutions or schools or career paths or things that have drawn us in the past. And just like you would with a coaching client, you want to find what those things are that come really, really naturally to you. I mean, it is hard building a business. So you might as well start with something that you really know and fully understand. So yeah, I just think looking into who you are, who you're drawn to, and the topics. Some people are really interested in, smoking cessation or, just whatever your specialty might be, just to really feel like, okay, that's important to me because I did it, or maybe or maybe you've been around a lot of people who you've seen move through some specific kinds of challenges.
Yeah, I just keep thinking, like, check your Amazon, purchase history. What books did you buy when you were first getting started in health coaching?
That's really smart. Yeah.
Surroundings. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And I mean, I think it's really cool once you narrow down that niche, that helps you to know what next steps to take. Because one thing we hear from you health coaches all the time is, okay, I'm ready to start coaching. Where are my clients? Like, where do I go to find them? Right? Like, this is the natural next question. And when you know that niche, then you can start looking for places where the type of person you're wanting to work with, where do they congregate? What do they do? Right? And then you can place yourself in partnerships and in places where you'll interact with them. Yeah, I mean, do you see any additional benefits once you find your niche that kind of help you to grow your business? I know that's the first one that comes to my mind. I'm sure there's others as well.
Well, like you mentioned, you can look in physical locations, you can look at local universities, high schools, businesses, religious institutions, things like that to see, where are my people hanging out, like you say, in person, in reality, in life, and then also where are they hanging out online? And just make sure that there were some people in my Mayo Clinic cohort who are now working through and with universities in particular, because this field is growing so fast and it's dawning on people. I got an email from a new client yesterday who was saying, like, I just realized that I don't need another plan. I need a coach. And people don't know, people until very recently, really didn't know what health coaching was. So the growth potential is enormous, but we do, like you say, have to educate people on what we do and what kind of services are available. So if we can get into most organizations are looking for ways to support the health and well-being of their people. So, if you can go in and have that niche and have that specialty and explain what coaching is and what services you offer, it may not come through in exactly the way you think, but it'll help you hone what you're doing and your communication skills on it. There'll probably be lots of pitches that don't work or don't go anywhere. But every single time you do that, it helps you really get clear for yourself. And then in the end, some of them will come through and it'll start to grow. And then that starts to, feed other connections along the way. And you find private clients and you find group events and things from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the whole topic of our conversation here is, okay, you got your health coaching certification and now what? So we've kind of got that first step. So nail down what that niche is going to look like. And I think it's okay to acknowledge it doesn't always come easily, right? Like sometimes the only thing you can do, you're like, I don't know what it is. I'm taking all of these steps. I'm looking to see who do I want to work with? What is my past? I'm digging into all that, but I'm not sure what it is. It's okay to just start coaching. Like it is okay to not know and just jump in and give it some time. It's going to surface, right?
Not only is it okay, it's necessary and it's important to just do it. And you're gonna not be perfect. You're just not, and you shouldn't be, or else what's the point?
Right.
Yeah.
Which actually brings me to my favorite question that I love to ask is, if you were to look back when you were first starting your health coaching business, what is one mistake that you made? And what did you learn from that we can share with everybody? Because we all made plenty of mistakes, right? Like I can think of 100 that I made.
Yeah. Well, I think, like I said, the one that really hurts me now to think of is what I was doing to my clients when I was telling them what to do. And then I was also trying to help them find their own path. Like I was putting them in an impossible situation. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest one. And then also I would say, and this may have been just the nature of the internet at the time, but I don't think I put soon enough into place the technical support that I needed to make their experience smooth and easy. And that's something I know that YourCoach is helping with, to provide, all of these services for, booking and billing and sessions and group things. And, that stuff the more seamless it is for them, the better. And I was a late adopter, maybe because I was so early in coaching, but I was very late to coming to some of that stuff. So I think that using the tools that are out there is a really, really important thing.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think so many of us, we go into health coaching because we're people, right? Like we want to work with people and we don't necessarily devote as much time or attention to the kind of businessy techie sides, but the more barriers we can remove for our clients, the easier we can make it for them, the more successful they're going to be, and the more we can focus on doing what we do best, which is coaching, right? Yes, we want that tech to just be a support piece, but not the centerpiece. And I think, I appreciate you mentioning YourCoach because we have a lot of great ways to support coaches, which also really supports their clients and makes it seamless and easy and less time that they have to focus on all those nitty gritty details and just dive in. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning for all of the health coaches that are here, like it's okay, expect to make some mistakes, expect to, waffle around a little bit, bump into the walls a little bit. You're going to find your place. We all do it. I know it's hard when, especially in the digital age, you see these health coaches out here that are just rocking it, right? Like they seem like they're doing everything perfectly. And that comes out of making all of those mistakes in the beginning. So I love that we can come together, chat about them, normalize it, and, hopefully help create new mistakes, not repeating the ones that we've made in the past, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you also mentioned kind of that tech piece in there and making it easier for your clients. So when you were getting started with all of the tech stuff and you mentioned, having to switch hats, being a little bit more prescriptive maybe, and then, trying to put your coaching hat on. And I think as we're navigating scope and in this digital age where they can go to a website for, $20, $30, download this program that tells them all of the answers, but we know it's not working, right? Because they're still coming back and they're still wanting coaching.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a health coach or to help them understand like how to balance educating clients on what health coaching is and that it's not super prescriptive, but also, trying to help them find their direction?
Permission, permission, permission. I mean, it's just seeking permission every time that you want to offer some kind of information or advice. The longer I coach, the more I lean back. And really, it's amazing what happens when you really put people in charge of their own, the whole health journey that they're on, but even within the microcosm of a session. When you put them in charge of what happens from minute to minute in the actual meeting, in the coaching session, they lean in. The more I lean back, the more they lean in, and the more they want to inform where we're going next. And when we get to the point where they're just like, and then this, and then that, and then the other, and I'm like, well, how would it be if I gave you some advice on this or some information about this particular condition or situation or plan or whatever? And they're like, yes. And you give them the information. They're like, okay. And they're writing it down and they're doing their thing. So I think it's just all about never getting ahead of them, always letting them be the leader, and then always asking permission when it is time to offer something.
Yeah, absolutely. Recognizing that they are the expert in themselves and their lives, right? And then we have the tools and resources that with their permission, we can share with them to help them sort through and find their best path, because there's a million different ways to get from A to B, right? We just have to find the one that works best for them and allow them to have that space to process it and forge their path. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So of course, as health coaches, we always want to have an idea of how, we're going to approach a session, right? We're just creatures of habit. We love having that. And even though we want the clients to completely lead going into that session, how do you prepare yourself for a coaching session with a client?
How do I prepare myself? Well, that's a different question than I was thinking you were going for. Okay. So, I just make sure, if I've already been coaching them already, obviously, I just make sure that I go back in advance. So I always leave at least 15 minutes between my sessions so that I have time to go back and review what we talked about the previous time, what they were focusing on, so that I'm really fresh. Because when you have enough clients, you start to lose track of what's going on. So you need every time I have to refresh to make sure that I remember exactly what we discussed last time. And then, I just show up. I make sure that I'm distraction free. I have nothing going on in my house, which is more challenging with, COVID and everybody in the house and all the pets and animals and things. Phones are off, buzzers are off, anything that could possibly distract me. And then I'm just ready to focus on them.
Yeah. And I mean, arguably, we know that 1 minute before that coaching session starts can be the most important minute, where we're just centering ourselves, making sure we can be present and making sure we're really showing up in our best self and best way so we can support the client. So I love that. Everybody has a different routine. I'm always curious, what different coaches do. Like, I know for me, I love having my room smell nice. It helps put me in a good frame of mind. So I always make sure there's a candle or an essential oil going. And I've taken a moment to just kind of breathe and center myself, because you're right. The world is chaos, right? Like kids at home, pets at home, things are going crazy, and just centering yourself. And then once that session gets started, what advice would you have for coaches maybe who are just getting started and not sure how they're going to set up their sessions?
Yeah. So we before we came online here, we talked about this, about this idea of what are the key elements of a coaching session that I touch on every time. So the first one is just safety. I just make sure that as we start our session, they know that I am there for them. I am, and it's funny while you were just talking about that preparation time. Like, I find coaching, my husband's always saying, like, how do you come out of these sessions not just beat down, because people are struggling And I just find it such a relief to put my stuff aside for an hour and just focus on somebody else. It's such a relief. So I come in, make sure they know that they are safe, which in a first session is to clarify for them that I am bound by HIPAA laws and that everything we talk about is confidential and that they can't say anything that can shock me. Which at this point, after 20 years, they really can't. So safety first. And then just developing that rapport, making sure, how are you? How is your day? How is your week so far? What's going on? And to make sure that they, in the same way that I just came into the session focused and clear, that they're able to come in and really just kind of get whatever that is out of the way. So they'll tell me, 5 minutes or so of what's going on, and sort of purge that. And then depending, if it's a first session, it's, why did you reach out right now? Why are you interested in health coaching? What are you looking for? And if it's somebody I've been working with, I'll ask them, what stuck with you from our last session? What have you been thinking about the most? Or what has been most interesting for you? And that always gets people just, okay. And then right where they are. So you're not going and saying, well, last time we said we were gonna, XYZ. Right off the bat, that puts people on their heels, because a lot of times what they said they were going to do, they didn't do, or they're struggling with
real
it,
talk.
or it happened once or twice. And oftentimes actually people give themselves less credit for what they have done than what they actually have done. So then after that, then we can reflect what they said, which often is unable to repeat, oh, so you did do XYZ. You came in saying you failed, but you also did XYZ. So it doesn't sound to me like you failed. So we can talk about, I can sort of reflect that for them. And then we talk about, I try to go to the things that are positive. What have you tried in the past? What felt good? What did you do this week that felt like it made a difference or that helped? Anything that you can do to get a positive kind of thing out of them, and then reflect that again. And they sort of go, they kind of perk up and they're like, yeah, I guess you're right. I did do that. Yeah. And then we can talk about the challenges and the things that they feel like they need to overcome. And we can really get into that and put on, like speaking of hats, we can put on a scientist hat and say like, okay, let's think about this. What are the circumstances? What was getting in your way? What is making this difficult? What is making this challenging? And then we can look at those little tiny things and start moving those puzzle pieces around and see if we can alleviate some of those obstacles. And then I kind of gauge, I never assume that by the end of a session, somebody's going to say, well, I've decided that I want to work out 6 times a week. Like there's no assumption that they're going to want to make a big commitment.
Right.
So I gauge their interest and their readiness. To see, sometimes I use that 10-point scale that people probably learned about in their training programs, and just see where they are. And if they're feeling like they're really would feel better if they did XYZ and they can't figure out how to make that happen, then we get into the SMART goals and, trying to find the details. And I'm pretty consistently pull people back from what they say they want to do, unless they've already, like, if they're just killing their goals and getting there, then we'll take a big leap and let's see how that goes. Sometimes people like really big, sometimes people, it just depends on the person, will respond to a really big goal if they're really ready and excited about it. So again, following the client's lead on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, just being able to tap in and really listen for those stages of change, right? And having that basic understanding. I know a lot of times we lean back on the trans-theoretical model, but just recognizing where they're at and helping them to understand that too. It's okay to be in pre-contemplation and just be thinking about what you want to do. Often that can be challenging, right? You don't, maybe they don't know what they want to do. And so we're getting curious, we're asking questions, we're leaning into those values and strengths to look for the positive and always guide them there, because we live in the, I talk about the social media age where we see the highlight reels from everybody, right? So I think we sometimes feel this pressure to do everything perfectly right out of the gate. But that's not real life. So I think coaches, we can hold space for that and sit back and kind of walk them through that, ask questions, get them to discover what's going to work for them. I love that so much. When you're getting to the end of that and with those SMART goals, you know, obviously we want them to have a target to shoot for, but sometimes we're in a different stage of change where we're just chatting about it and coming through it. You know, everything we've talked about in this session is face-to-face coaching, right? So, you know, whether that's in person or here in a digital video format, have you in your practice incorporated any other mediums for coaching, like text-based coaching or even shorter, you know, video responses, anything like that? Or do you find most of your coaching takes place in this kind of format?
Like I say, I've been slow on the tech. No, I do have clients that will text, you know, or message me just to kind of like inform me, you know. I'll say, you know, why don't you just text me when you get, you know, when you accomplish XYZ, if that feels good for you. And I'll just sort of send them a thumbs up, you know, just to kind of recognize that I'm there for that. I haven't done that. I teach group events, you know, at like corporations and nonprofits and stuff like that. But no, I haven't done into the, I also, I think the self-efficacy piece is really important for people. I don't want to become a crutch for people. Right. So that protects my time and my work as well, and my family. But yeah, for the most part, I let people go between their sessions and do their thing. And then, you know, I think YourCoach also has things where they can be checking in, and is that right?
Yeah, right. So if we set a SMART goal, then we have a place in the platform where you can put that in and clients can check off as they're completing them, and then they can write their success or their you know, happiness with that goal. And so it gives us something to kind of chat about as well. Definitely. But you know, it's interesting to me to see how different coaches approach it, right? So I think we see all around digital tech and digital health, as well as in private practice, a wide spectrum between text only to video only and everything in between, right? So it's always interesting to hear how different people leverage that. And I think that goes into knowing who you're working with, right? That's going to play a big part in how that setup goes as well.
Yeah, and who you are and how you best. Like, I just love one-on-one, and some people it drives them. They much prefer different avenues, but I just love it. So.
Yeah, and that's I love that flexibility that we have that, and you know, there's a million different ways to approach it, and I love even, you know, the national board, as they're coming in and standardizing things, they're leaving that very open as well. Scope can fit into any of those.
Right.
So let's actually chat a little bit about the national board. So I know we touched on it in the beginning, and they've been such a game changer in the world of health coaching. And as coaches are completing these certification programs, I think there's a lot of questions about sitting for the exam. So what would you say would, you know, be some driving forces maybe to sit for it or not sit for it, in your opinion?
Yeah. I mean, I will admit my bias here. I just think the national board is the bee's knees, as my mother would say. Yeah, I think that they have set a really important standard for quality and delivery of, you know, coaching that can be readily utilized by individuals, groups, corporations, governments, I hope someday. Yeah, I would, for anyone who really is serious about a health coaching career, I would definitely encourage them to go for the national board certification if possible. That does not speak badly or ill of anyone who is not able to or hasn't done it yet. But yeah, I just think it's a wonderful credential. And I think that once the health insurance codes come through, the job opportunities that will continue to open up will just be, you know, so many. So yeah, so I definitely encourage that. I mean, it's no small task, as I think those of us who have done it know. But you know, most of those, the certified courses, the courses that qualify you to sit for the exam, do a really good job of preparing you. You know, they wouldn't be qualified courses if it wasn't. So yeah, I think that lean into those courses. Most of them have kind of refresher ones that you can take to sit for the exam. And then I had, you know, a stack this thick of index cards with all the study things to make sure that I knew everything. Yeah. So I would encourage it.
Yeah, and another piece too, for anybody who may want to sit for that exam, if you've completed the certification program, YourCoach actually just launched a scholarship program where we're going to be giving out 5 scholarships for each sitting at the MBHWC. And not only does it cover the cost of the exam, but you're also getting an exam prep study guide. And we're going to do some sessions together to study for it, just to try to support, because it is such a big thing. I remember I had a giant stack of cards just like you. I put them out and did the digital quizzes that you could make out of them. It's a lot to sort through to think about, what do I need to study? How do I best use my time? And they have this lovely list of resources to read. And, it's like 15 or 20 books. And you're thinking, oh, what do I do now? How do I sort through this? So I'm really excited about that. I think in the chat we'll drop, oh, I see it now. We've got the link there for how to apply for the scholarship. So anybody who's thinking about it, I would highly encourage you to check that out. It's a really neat opportunity, trying to open those doors for people who may not otherwise be able to sit for it. And then, of course, you go into the exam. It's a lengthy exam. We've been there. I think it was almost 4 hours. Don't let that scare anybody. It's just a testament to the quality they're trying to achieve in having this certification, right? So it's done by the Board of Medical Examiners. It's still very much an evolving process, but I think it's really neat to see that coming through. So we know that certification is a good first step there, but doesn't necessarily always, it's not the only indicator of quality coaching, right? So there's lots of other pieces that come into it. It's just one piece of the puzzle. So what I'm curious, in your mind, as someone who's practiced for a long time and worked with other coaches, and now you're literally writing the book on some of it, what kind of quality metrics would you be looking for in a coach? What makes a good coach?
Empathy, patience. I think there's an element of it. I was leaning toward the word cheerleader, but it's not quite like it's more of a joyful exploration. That where, like, because people get beat down, so there's an element of like, oh, but what if, it's almost, I get almost mischievous about it. Like, ooh, that's an interesting thing you experienced. Like, tell me more about that. What was that like? How can that inform us instead of frustrating us? And once people get into that mindset, they really start to grow. They really start to break through, in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's always those soft skills. I love hearing them, and everybody, it seems like we all come back to the same soft skills, which is kind of just a proof that sets you up for success as a health coach. Yeah. Time is flying by, though. I just realized what time it is, and we've had a lot of questions come in, which is really great. So we want to make sure we take time to dig into the questions from everybody here. Before we jump into that, is there anything else that you want to speak about, or are you ready just to dive in?
I think I'm ready to dive in.
Let's do it. There's a lot of really good ones.
Okay.
So the first one here is, what is the quickest way to master the flow of a coaching session?
Practice. I mean, I gave kind of a outline there, which is a good place to start. But I think just to recognize that there's going to be hit or miss. Even after 20 years, there is hit or miss. There are times when I get off the session and I'm like, I should have said or could have said, or that was I pushed too far, or, there are certainly moments where that happens. So I just think it's a matter of practice.
Yeah, and that's so important. Just get in and do it, right? That was something we even said in the beginning about the niche, like just dive in. It's going to be a little scary. It's going to be a little murky. It's all right. Just, to steal from Nike here, just do it, right?
Just do it, right. Yes.
Yeah. And also, I mean, for other coaches who may be interested, we do have an apprenticeship program that we're going to be launching. So, if you would like a little bit more guidance, we also have a mentorship program. So you can definitely, within the platform, look for those opportunities. And that's another way to be supported as you're kind of navigating this beginning piece. So, all right, let's see. Our next question, what will I need to do to lock down those uncertain clients? Ooh, that's an open-ended one. Lots of directions.
So my opinion on that is that you do not want to lock down anyone into anything that they don't want to do. And the easiest way to get them to commit is to give them absolute autonomy over what they're going to do. So people never get a hard sell from me about what they about, starting sessions or, continuing sessions. Or I know a lot of coaches, not just health coaches, but kind of business coaches and life coaches and all kinds of things, selling these like $10,000 package and you get X number of months. And for some people, that's really, well, $10,000 a lot, but especially for starting out. But I have an absolute, if I do have people pay in 5 sessions at a time just to simplify billing. But if they were to cancel 48 hours in advance and say, I never want to see you again, I assure them that they will get their money back. So money back guarantee. I find that when you really, like I say, lean back and say, this is what I can offer, this is what it is, I'm not going to force your hand, this is your journey all the way, all the time. Then people go, okay, well, this is, they take ownership of it. Yes. And then they're going to be getting the benefit of the actual coaching once they're there. If they're not wanting to be there in the first place and they're skeptical of you and they think you're trying to take their money and whatever, they're not going to do well with the coaching. So I think just presenting them with what you can do, with any evidence, if you have a website and you have some testimonials on there, if you can get those, that's really helpful for people to really feel like they might get a feel for what they're doing, but also to let them opt in or out as they like. That's my personal method, but I struggle with being salesy in marketing. That's something that I didn't do well for a very long time.
Well, I think there's a big difference too between understanding the value that you bring and what your scope is and being very clear with that. So we're setting clear expectations with the clients versus, what may have been more defined health coaching, 30 years ago, where maybe it leaned a little bit looser for here's the results we're promising you. And it felt a little bit like, the old snake oil salesman, right? Yeah. Now we can rest in that scope and know our value. And then when we bring that to clients, they know what to expect. And it makes the relationship start off on a really firm foundation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Our next question. What is the best way to educate clients about health coaching? Speaking of all of those expectations.
Yeah. So, if you've got, we should have talked about this before, I guess, that it's really important to have a presence online these days. So if you can build a basic website, which, you can do yourself, really, it doesn't have to be an expensive thing that you're going to do. But it gives you a place to write, to put out blog posts, to put out content and information, videos. You can do this on social media as well, where you are educating people in little tiny, really digestible snippets about what you do. And again, leaning into that niche that you've got. And it helps you build confidence and clarify the work that you do and how to communicate it. So over time, I think that as I have found that as I have tried to educate the public, because I'm writing articles, what is a health coach, and it has really helped to inform me in one-on-one conversations about that. So I think continuing to put out content and to create information for people out in the world, very small, one at a time, that then people are able to take that on and learn. And then they'll come looking, and at your website, you can have other things. Also, another thing would be on your website, if you've got a newsletter, newsletters are really helpful because they nurture relationships with people who are hearing from you, even if it's just once a month. I send them out every other week. And it gives people a place to go to where they can really learn about who you are and what you do and what health coaching does. And as a part of that, where they sign up, you can do like a lead nurture series where they'll get a series automatically. So you don't have to be clicking all these emails. You can get a series, like if anyone wants to see how one works, they can sign up for mine. There's, I think, 4 emails that come over the course of a week or 2.
Yeah. And another option too is within the YourCoach platform. So we not only have the links that you can link to your practice on all of your social channels, but we also, when you design your programs, you can put a lot of those resources in there to drip them to your clients throughout the program. So they're getting those little pieces of education as they're moving along with you. So just another option for, coaches to be able to educate. I love that. Yeah, making it digestible is so important because there's a flood of information out there. And also, just another thought I'm having here too. I know as coaches, it's so beneficial for us to be able to bounce ideas off of other coaches. I mean, the whole purpose of our conversation here is to pick your brain as an experienced health coach, and our coaching community can be a great place for that. We've got a lot of seasoned coaches there, a lot of new coaches, and they can come together and bounce out some of those ideas. And that's found just within the platform as well. So let's see, our next question in there. I am thinking about getting another certificate. Is it worth it, or should I focus on building my niche instead?
I mean, another certificate is never a bad thing, especially if you're really curious and interested in the topic. And I think that it can help you build that niche.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm always for more education. I think that's great.
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily has to be an or, right? That could be an and. You can easily get with those. Your certificate may be leading you towards that niche too, right? Because you found something you're interested in that's worth digging into and seeing where that leads you.
Absolutely.
All right. Next question. We've got so many good ones. This is great. I just got my certification and no luck getting clients yet. Would love to be able to learn more. How can I do that?
Whew, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I was just in Los Angeles last week, and I was telling my husband how I used to drive at 5 a.m. across Los Angeles to go to some clients that I had. Back then there wasn't like virtual health coaching. And just how exhausting that was and how little I was making. And, it just it's a process of building. And I do think that coaches are in a much better situation right now than, they used to be. There's so many more options. It sounds like the question is about building a private practice. So we'll talk about that in a second, but I just want to stress that there are so many organizations that are hiring coaches. I know some of the tech ones are also cutting them at the moment, which is happening broadly, but there really are quite a lot. And now the national board has a job board that's available. So you can find jobs as a health coach. And I think those opportunities will only grow in the future. So there's that. Yes. For the private practice, like we mentioned before, reaching out to some of these organizations, places that you have associations in the past, or places in your local area, writing like I did for local publications can really get your name out there and can help people go, oh, yeah, health coach, right? And then you start to rise in your local town up in the Google rankings and the searches and all of that stuff. And then just continuing to put out content. But I do think that those personal connections in real life are the ones that really can get you started. And of course you can create, small packages or discounted rates or family and friend rates or things just to get more of that, just like you might have done to get your hours to your certification programs.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about back when we were talking about niche, going to those places where your ideal clients are and just getting boots on the ground and just chatting with people, because people want to work with people. So if they can get to know you, or someone that gets to know them and they pass that along, that's a really powerful referral source.
And it grows. It's one of those, like, it's this kind of curve, you guys are back.
Right.
It's this kind of curve,
and sometimes it's like this, right? You get a little loop-de-loop.
It just feels like forever here. And then once it really starts to go, then you're set. Right.
Yeah. Getting started is often the challenging piece in there, but you're absolutely right. And once you're off to the races. All right, let's see. Our next one. I am thinking about becoming an NBC HWC, so Nationally Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. What can I do to ensure that I'm on the right path and this exam is worth it for me? We touched on this a little bit, but might be a little bit we can add to that.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is really just to think about what you love. Do you love this work? If you really love this work and you have an idea of who you want to serve, then I just don't think you can go wrong with the national board certification. There's just, you know, of course the financial obstacle might, you know, but again, YourCoach is helping with that for a few folks, but it's just, I just can't be more, I can't recommend it highly enough. I just think it's a great solid career move, because otherwise, you know, there's this sort of mushy kind of world of coaches out there that are just sort of, you know, you kind of drift into that mush if without the certification. But with each certification that you get, you stand out more, you have a more specific expertise and a more specific focus and niche that you can work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ties back into the question that we were asking before about like all of these opportunities for coaches out there. There's a lot of different directions that you can go. And I don't know if everybody has seen yet, but we are going to be hosting an event alongside the national board on June 21st. And it's called, you know, Demystifying Health Coach Opportunities for Coaches. So we're going to dive into a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of heads of coaching from different digital tech companies coming together to talk about how health coaching fits in with their product and what the opportunities are for coaches out there. So for coaches who aren't sure, that can be a wonderful conversation. And of course, on our end here at YourCoach, you know, we would love to have our practicing health coaches come onto the platform. We are an end-to-end practice management platform and the operating system for behavior change. But we also give client opportunities to practicing health coaches. So as coaches are getting out there and they're getting started, you know, this could be a great way to build that momentum in your practice and have those clients available for you. So definitely want to put that out there because I know I would have loved something like that when I was getting started with my practice. All right, let's see. Next question is, I am a new coach starting out. What would be the top 3 things on your checklist? Like those tangible things to just go and do as you're getting started.
Website. Website is number 1. And then getting all of those tech support systems that we talked about. So billing, calendar signups, client support things like what your coach offers. And then I guess the newsletter, probably starting to build that email list so that you have really concrete relationships with everybody who is consuming the information that you're putting into the world. And also
so getting all of those systems in place, right?
Yeah,
like
and
that's a huge piece.
Yeah. And there's, as part of that, another thing we didn't mention is having what techies call a lead magnet, which is something that, you know, you give people for free for signing up for your newsletter. So for me, it's the first chapter of my most recent book, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be a worksheet. It can be, you know, a little video that you made or, you know, a welcome video or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's such a huge piece to have those systems in place before you get really big because you know, when you have the time and you're setting everything up and just a few clients, it's easy to tweak those processes versus down the line when you're working with numerous clients, it can be hard. It's a bigger ship to turn, right? Yes. And of course, you know, shameless plug, I love what we have here at YourCoach. So there are great systems in place. It's really easy to start in the beginning. I know Rebecca is going to drop in the chat or has about the tiers and perks and how it lowers the cost of the platform the more you're practicing on here, which I think is really cool because it can definitely be a cost barrier sometimes to set up that tech. So having that available is a huge boost as we're getting started. All right, I think we've got time for 1, maybe 2 more questions. So let's see, our next one, let's see. We already chatted about that one. We talked about a couple of tangibles, but when you're studying for the NBHWC exam, so you've got your certification, you're not ready to sit for the exam, what is the one thing that you would say to really focus in and hone in on to set you up for success with the exam?
I mean, for me and for many of the other coaches that I know, the clinical medical piece of the information was the most important. And it's also very tangible and accessible. It's just numbers, you know, definitions and things. So, you know, I found at least at the Mayo Clinic that a lot of the prep was really in the, like you say, soft skills. It was really in the coach approach and the mindset of that. And that is a huge part of the exam. And the medical piece, I didn't feel like I got, ironically, from the Mayo Clinic. I didn't feel like I got quite what I needed there. So I was so happy that I really dug into that and just did some hard old school memorization of that stuff, because those are easy questions on the exam that you can blow right through.
Yeah. And one tip I hear a lot of coaches doing that I know I definitely did is the minute you get in there for the exam, they give you this either whiteboard or piece of paper, depending on where you test, and just writing those out really quick. It's like a brain dump.
I forgot about that.
Once you're like 2 hours into the exam, sometimes it's a little harder to recall those things. So just getting them out and written quickly can be really helpful.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And then let's see, we've got one more question here that says, I am a nurse and personal trainer and looking to add health coaching. I desire for work with PCPs. Where do I start? This will be a good one for our event too.
Wait, what?
So she desires to work with PCPs, so primary care physicians. Where could she get started with that?
Well, I mean, that's going to be the PCPs that lean towards more naturopathic kind of mindsets are the ones right now, I think, that are hiring the most coaches. It's hard because of the codes. But I do know that some doctors are hiring. I just haven't, I don't know that I'm the expert to answer that question, but those jobs are out there. I think they are, not super common at the moment. I know there are some, and I just think that it's growing by the minute. So I think within a year or two, that hopefully there will be many, many more opportunities for that.
Yeah,
the job board, maybe at the national board, they might have some information on that.
Yeah. And I mean, starting with your own, I just actually saw someone drop this in the chat as well, starting with your own PCP or those practices that are in your local community that you might have connections to could be a great place for that. Yeah. Which leads me to the final question I really wanted to ask you, because, we say that this is the year of the health coaching revolution. And so I would love to hear from you. What do you think is to come for health coaches in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
Well, I'm hopeful that those codes are going to be approved. And once that happens, I mean, I would like to see a health coach in every medical office, especially PCPs. And also resident health coaches in every business that, has any significant number of employees. I just think that, and partnerships as well with things like YourCoach and, huge corporations. I know there's some of that happening. I think some of it's embargo. I don't know what all the information is, but yeah, I think those partnerships are going to grow. The awareness is going to grow, and then placement. So it's just, what's most exciting to me is the accessibility, because right now, people that are paying privately for coaching, that is a lot of money. So also group coaching is another great thing to get certified in, so that you can, do that on, and affect more people who can't afford to pay the hourly rates for private coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of exciting changes to come. I think we're just at this place where it's snowballing, right? It's really noticeable, and health coaching is really gaining momentum, but the future is really bright. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
We're right at the beginning. We're right at the beginning of this, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's really neat to be a part of the beginning of it. So I'm really excited for everybody who's here and just getting started. And we're going to look back in 10 to 15 years even, I feel like, and say, gosh, remember when, it was just like this, and now look at it, it's so big.
Right.
Totally cool.
Yep.
Well, I know we are getting to time. There's still some questions that we weren't able to get to, unfortunately. However, we will be answering those in a wrap up to this. So we will definitely get to your questions. We know that they're very important. If you had questions you didn't get a chance to ask that are just occurring to you, you can definitely send those in an email, and we will try to get those answered for you as part of the wrap up as well. Just want to remind everybody, thank you so much for coming. And if you're not on our platform yet, we would love to have you on there. We do an onboarding session that you can book so we can walk you through it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. You can always reach out to me as well. Rebecca just dropped the email there. You can certainly type into us or schedule that onboarding call. And we look forward to seeing you guys at our other events coming up. And Sarah, thank you so much. Your advice was invaluable, and this time was great. Time flew by so fast.
Thank you. And I wanted to tell everybody also, feel free to reach out if you have questions for me, or sign up for the newsletter, or just connect with me. Instagram is my happy place. So come visit me there, connect with me there, and I'm always happy to respond to any questions anybody's got.
Perfect.
Thank
Well,
you so much also to YourCoach for having me. I hope this was helpful.
It's our pleasure. This has been great.
Great. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.